Hello, and welcome to another installment of reading from Menace in the Goldilocks Zone. I won't show you the cover this time, you've seen it already many times. We're up to chapter 10, and as you recall, we last left our hero, Roger, uh, about, about, about to depart from Mara after a long visit. And as a kind of refresher, I'll read the last few paragraphs of chapter 9. Larderson and Forgeson begin clearing the remains of the meal of their Gatherdam's direction as Peregrine accompanies Roger back to the freighter. They're about to enter when Roger stops and stares into the hold. "How long is the trip to Arborea?" he asks. "About 50 days, Peregrine replies. "Our delay has had one positive effect, at least. It has allowed Mare to catch up with Arborea." 150 watches, Roger says determinedly. "Let it begin." So now we are on chapter 10. Inconspicuous. Roger awakes to the now more familiar shaking and shuddering of the freighter going through the atmosphere. The captain has indeed launched at first watch. He waits resignedly for the force pressing him to his sleeping platform to cease before unstrapping himself and ever so carefully stepping out of bed. He missed the watch change meal, which was just as well, as he had once again has no appetite. He briefly considers taking out his paints and training tether, but decides against it. He flushes his gill chambers and decides to visit the cockpit for a look at the stars and their distant destination. "Use the grips and rails," he repeats to himself. "Hold with two, grab with two." His progress strikes him as unduly painstaking, which puts him in a testy mood. "Admiral on the bridge," Forgedem announces at Roger's arrival. "Good watch to you too, Captain," Roger says acridly. "I must say, I've failed to find my inflated title as amusing as you seem to." "It's not your title that amuses me," Forgedem replies evenly. "It's your discomfort with it that delights me. That one so deserving of accolades would so firmly shrug them off is refreshing." "I don't know what you're talking about, I'm sure," Roger retorts, unmollified. "I simply have done my service as so many have." "So you would have it," Forgedem says, no less amused. "What can we do for you, Admiral?" Turn the page, evidently. Roger shoots the captain what on water would be a dark look. "Which one is Arborea?" he asks when his glowering gets no response. "Do you see those three very bright stars that form the corners of a triangle?" Forgedem queries, pointing. "Yes." "Arborea is that fainter point of light near the center of the triangle." "Which one? The one more to the left or to the right?" Forgedem looks intently at the point she had indicated. "Those cerulean eyes of yours," she says finally. "I can only see one." "Is Arborea greenish blue or gray and blue?" Roger asks. "More green than gray, I would imagine," she answers. "Mare can't see blue." She thinks for a moment. "The other one you're seeing must be Xenos." "Xenos? So far away, but closer than I like." Roger looks around at the stars. "Well, at least we don't seem to have any company." "No," the captain agrees. "Let's hope it stays that way." "Well, good watch, Captain." "Good watch to you, Admiral." "Good watch, my friend." Roger's goggles tell him the greeting comes from his left and below. He waits for his rotation to bring the source of the salutation into view. Peregrine," Roger says, as his friend drifts into, then out of his sight. "Good watch to you." "Is all well?" "Very well, thank you." Roger waits for Peregrine to return to his line of sight. "And with you?" "Quite well." Peregrine waits until Roger is facing him again. "What are you doing?" "I'm painting a meditation on Mare. I call it Seas of Grass and Rivers of Glass. He shows the canvas to Peregrine as he turns to face her again. Breathtaking. Thank you. Any word about Kryptos? Happily no, Peregrine replies. I dare to hope we will be in time. I am curious, Roger says casually, just what the nature of the calamity would be. Peregrine does not answer for a moment. I would prefer to discuss it in a different setting, she says finally. It's very disconcerting to have you floating above my head like this. But of course, Roger says hastily, I'm sorry, but I find floating about like this makes this incarceration more endurable. Perhaps we can talk at the next change of watch. Yes, that suits me better. In the galley, then, at the next change of watch. I'll see you then. It is the beginning of the 31st watch, and the conversation over the meal is minimal, until Roger, as much to get people talking as much as anything, asks, Tell me about Arborea. What is it like? Oh, Forrest M replies, a big question. Well, Burrowson chimes in, it's a larger planet than Mererba. So the gravity is stronger, Roger notes wryly. Wonderful. It's also warmer, Peregrine adds reassuringly. Does it have an ocean? Roger asks hopefully. Yes, Peregrine replies, but we are trying to be as inconspicuous as possible, as on the other planets most of the population lives near the oceans, and on Arborea being inconspicuous is very challenging. So we're staying off the beaten track again. Roger finds it hard to hide his despondency. Away from the ocean. I'm afraid so, Peregrine confirms sympathetically. You have to understand, the Arboreans are a very social people. It seems they need the company of their own kind more than food or water. Yes, Fortune agrees. Isolated Arboreans have been known to die of loneliness. Really? Roger asks, astonished. They could not be less like people on water. Cerulia. No, they couldn't, Peregrine agrees. It also means that they talk a lot. An awful lot, Forgesden adds. They talk about things so much that those things become something else, Burrowson throws in. What? Roger says. I don't understand. Oh, you will, Burrowson assures him grimly. You will. All that means that the arrival of the first Cerulean to visit the planet, an admiral no less, will cause a big stir, Forgesden explains. It will be unavoidable. But it is better to attract the attention of a few rather than of many if we wish to be inconspicuous. Well, let's not tell them I'm an admiral then, Roger says, exasperated. It's an exaggeration at best, and if it will minimize the stir... Well, I've thought about that, Forgesden admits, but I think the advantages of having someone with a title outweigh the disadvantages. How so? Roger asks. Like the Aredians, Forgesden explains, the Arboreans are impressed by titles, but for different reasons. Where the Aredians esteem titles as an indication of achievement, the Arboreans esteem them as an indication of status, and status is very important to Arboreans. I don't see how that helps us, Roger retorts, no less exasperated. At the very least, you will be a distraction, Forgesden replies. The Arboreans will be so obsessed with you that they won't even notice the rest of us. And at best, your status will induce the Arboreans to cooperate, Peregrine adds. It will help smooth out any potential difficulties. Roger ponders all this for a moment or two. All right, he says finally. You know I will do what I can to assure the success of our expedition. I just wish it all didn't depend on pretense and subterfuge. I still don't understand why we have to be so inconspicuous. We will leave that to you and Peregrine to discuss, Forgesden says. The rest of us either need to rest or to attend to our duties. Of course, Roger replies. Good watch all. And to you, sir, various crew members say as they leave the galley. Roger and Peregrine are alone. Well, Roger asks pointedly. Where to begin? Peregrine says at a loss. Let's start with the calamity. Well, that's as good a start as any, Peregrine nods. You remember I told you that an evil lurked on Kryptos? Yes, Roger agrees. But what kind of evil? A monster? A disease? Criminals? You didn't say. The criminals have long gone, Peregrine says. What they left, however, is both a monster and disease. For about the 100th time on this trip, I find myself saying, I don't understand, Roger says. I must say it's very frustrating. I imagine it is, Peregrine says apologetically. She pauses, considering her next words. What remains on Kryptos is a malignant intelligence, she says finally. An intelligent machine that can infect other machines. An intelligent machine? You mean like a tablet? No, this machine learns, makes plans, and has ambitions, the way a person might. Only this machine's ambitions are worse than any criminal's. And what is that ambition? Roger asks, not certain he really wants to know. I don't know what its ultimate ambition is, Peregrine admits, but it has proven itself hostile to intelligent life. I suspect it wants to control everything, remove all threats to itself. It sees intelligent life forms as threats. So the Iredians would be a threat, Roger observes. So you fear for the safety of the Iredian base? Yes, and what would happen if the evil infected Iredian technology? Right now, this machine is shackled by a lack of means. It has no way to pursue its ambitions. It needs other machines like tablets and cruisers to effect its will. If it infects Iredian technology, the entire solar system, and maybe the galaxy, will be at its mercy. So what do existence and the other treasures have to do with this? Are you telling me that this evil machine took them? If so, why? Peregrine takes a long time to consider her response. There was a time, long ago, when the machine had more resources at its disposal, she replies finally. Not enough to achieve its ambitions, but enough to gather more resources. It took those treasures then because they represent important knowledge it thought it needed to secure its safety and achieve its goals. So we are retrieving those treasures to deny this machine that knowledge. Yes, Peregrine says simply. I always had a feeling this was not just some sightseeing lark, Roger admits. If I understand things then, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves in order to avoid drawing attention to our destination and our mission, thereby reducing the risk of infection of other machines. As perceptive as ever, Peregrine observes. How are we going to avoid getting our machines infected? By being very careful, Peregrine replies. Very careful. It is the end of the 83rd watch, and Roger is just deciding whether or not he had an appetite when Nourdam appears in his field of vision. Mr. Roger, the captain needs you in the cockpit right away. Very well, Roger replies calmly. What is wrong? What's happened? We've been intercepted by 2 Iredian scouts, and they're asking for you. What in the great tidal swell? Roger says in the cerulean equivalent of muttering. What could they possibly want now? He hastens to the cockpit to find 2 of the needle-like spacecraft traveling just ahead of and in parallel to the Mare Urban freighter. Admiral, Forgedam greets him dryly. It seems your Iredian friends miss you. She picks up the headset. Iredian Scout, this is Mare Urban freighter bound for Arborea. We have the Admiral in the cockpit. She listens a moment, head cocked. Roger that, Iredian Scout. Stand by. She looks at Roger. It seems that their Admiral wishes to thank our Admiral for our recent assistance to their scout. Well, that's very nice, Roger says, but hardly necessary. Tell them to thank the Admiral, but we do not wish to interfere with their important duties. Forgedam looks at Roger a moment. I'm no diplomat, she says finally. But even I know you don't say no to an Iredian Admiral. Not even no thank you? Not even no thank you. Well then, I suppose we should tell the Admiral we are grateful for her kind invitation and await her instructions. Very good, sir. Forgedam does a sardonic imitation of the Iredian cross-thorax salute and replaces the headset. Iredian Scout, this is Mare Urban freighter. The Admiral accepts your kind invitation and awaits instructions. Forgedam cocks her head and listens. Roger that, Iredian Scout. Adjusting course now. Forgedam pushes a few buttons on the console. And tell rendezvous, Iridian Scout. We are over and out. She turns to Roger. We will rendezvous with an Iridian cruiser in 3 hours. You'd better find Peregrine and tell her what's happening. And Nourdam, make up an accurate manifest for our hosts. Just leave off any mention of Peregrine. Yes, ma'am. Roger is about to leave when he pauses. You know, he says to Forgedam, it was your idea for me to introduce myself as Admiral. Yes, the Captain replies dryly. I remember. Peregrine is not any more pleased than Roger and Forgedam to hear of the honor, muttering something about unintended consequences. She is even less pleased when it is decided that she is to secrete herself in a necessary at rendezvous in case the Iridians decide to complete an inspection. Why does she have to hide at all? Roger asks Forgedam. He turns to Peregrine. You're not a fugitive, are you? Oh, no, my friend. Nothing that dramatic, she assures him. I just prefer keeping my contacts with the Iridians unofficial. Look at all the fuss they're making over a Cerulean admiral, Forgedam adds, then looks significantly at Peregrine. Just imagine what a stir a Nebulan would cause. Roger notices Forgedam's peculiar emphasis on the word Nebulan, but also recalls the interest and excitement Peregrine provoked on the streets of Rocketon. I suppose you're right, he admits finally. We've already attracted too much attention if we are to be inconspicuous. The 2 scouts accompany them all the way to the rendezvous, and once again the freighter falls under the shadow of an enormous cruiser. Docking procedures are flawlessly executed as before, and Forgedam and Roger enter the airlock and wait for the doors to open on the Iridian side. Roger turns to Forgedam. You say the Iridians are not without a sense of gratitude. It seems to me they have a surplus of it. Forgedam is about to reply when the door slides open to reveal a familiar wing commander who snaps upright, salutes, and announces, Admiral on deck! Behind him, Roger can see 2 rows of uniformed Iridians, red crests raised, doing the same. Hello, Roger says, taken aback by all the pomp. Commander Basque, isn't it? Yes, sir, the officer replies, still at attention. It is my honor to escort you and the captain to see the admiral. The honor is ours, I assure you. Roger turns to Forgedam. She's going to take us to the admiral. How nice, Forgedam replies insincerely. As before, they proceed through an area in 0 gravity to a door with lights flashing above it. The admiral is most anxious to make your acquaintance, Basque informs them as they wait for the door to open. We could not believe our luck when one of our scouts spotted your vessel. I can't believe their luck either, Forgedam replies wryly after Roger translates the remark for her. The door opens and they step out onto a walkway under artificial gravity. This side path, as well as the main one it leads to, is lined with more uniformed Iridians standing bolt upright. As they approach, the Iridians snap to the crossed chest and raised red crest salute, creating a ripple as they proceed down the path. They arrive at the main walkway and turn to approach the bridge, and Roger notices Forgedam looking nervously above her head. I don't think we'll have any crew dropping in on us today, he reassures her. They near the bridge to find 2 ranks of uniformed Iridians with elaborate insignia on their chests, flanking a single Iridian with an even more elaborate insignia on hers. Basque steps forward and salutes the group. Admiral Gape, may I present Admiral Roger of the Cerulean Dread Patrol and Captain Forgedam of the Mer-Urban Freighter. At this, the entire assemblage salutes, complete with the raised red crests. That's retired, Admiral, Roger says again. Admiral Gape relaxes from her salute and steps forward. I am very familiar with the Dread Patrols and their traditions, she says. I had the honor of introducing our powered harpoons to the Dread some years ago. That was after my time, Roger observes. I understand they have been a boon. I am glad to hear it. Am I to understand that you hunted the Dreads using only thrown harpoons? Yes, ma'am. Gape repeated her salute. Excuse me. I came to have great admiration for the Dread. Excuse me. Dread patrols during my time in Cerulia. Tell me, Admiral, what was your rank before your promotion? I was a skiff commander. Very impressive. The admiral turns to the officers flanking her. Skiff commanders were in command of a sailing vessel with a crew of 6. They were in charge of training new recruits and operated with a great deal of autonomy. They patrolled open water in wind-driven, lightweight watercraft, hunting large and aggressive marine monsters. She turns back to Roger. Tell me, Admiral, were you ever a section commander? That is not an official rank, Roger replies, evading the question. I take it then that you were. She turns to explain to her officers. Section commanders informally oversaw and coordinated the activities of, she turned to Roger. I advised anywhere from 12 to 15 other skiff commanders, Roger replies reluctantly. They were basically operations officers for entire regions, Gabe continues. Is that still the case? As far as I know, yes, ma'am. Official regional commanders are little more than quartermasters, Roger observes. They spend all their time procuring and seeing that supplies are delivered to the skiffs. Essential work, he adds, but not very interesting. My time with the Dreads, was the most exciting and humbling of my entire career, Gabe recalls for the group. There is not a more dedicated and courageous corps in the solar system. Roger's discomfort with the praise provokes him to change the subject. The wounded second gunner we helped was called Gape, he remarks. Is she part of your clan? She's my daughter, the Admiral replies. Oh. Roger quickly translates this intelligence to Forgedam. Well, that explains a lot, she replies, but doesn't elaborate. How is she, your daughter? Roger asks. She has made a complete recovery. The medicos tell me it is due to the excellent and timely care she received on your vessel, she replies, addressing the captain. Roger translates for the Mayor Urban, who replies, because of the care you gave her. The captain is gratified that his crew was able to contribute to her recovery, Roger reports to Gabe. And we are grateful for their help, Gabe rejoins. I have asked you here so that we may demonstrate the depth of that gratitude. Gabe turns to one of her subordinates, who steps forward with 2 thin boxes. I have been authorized by the Iredian United Council and the Deep Space High Command, Gabe announces formally, to confer the honorary rank of Admiral to Roger of Cerulia and the honorary rank of Wing Commander to Captain Forgedam of Mare Urba. The subordinate opens the boxes one at a time while Roger translates for Forgedam, who is so startled she appears unable to move, even as Gabe places a sash of rank across her shoulders. Once the Admiral arranges Roger's sash to her satisfaction, the whole assembly once again salutes. Are we supposed to salute back? Forgedam asks Roger. I don't know, Roger replies. He leans forward confidentially to the Admiral. Excuse me, we're not familiar with your rituals. Are we supposed to return your salute? It's not required, Gabe assures him. We're good, Roger informs the new wing commander. Admiral, Gabe nods to Roger. Commander, you have our deepest gratitude and sincere appreciation. The Deep Space Patrol is at your command. Everyone salutes again. This time Forgedam and Roger simultaneously feel compelled to return it, albeit awkwardly. We thank you, Admiral, Roger says when all the saluting is done. But it is our sincerest hope that we will not need to exercise that prerogative. The Admiral blinked once. As is mine, she says. Thank you for allowing us to show our appreciation. Commander Basque will now escort you back to your vessel. Until we meet again. Once again, everyone salutes. The newly minted officers follow Basque down the walkway. Once again, their passing provokes a wave of salutes. You'd think their arms would get tired, Forgedam observes as the trio arrives at the airlock door. Basque, tired or not, has one last salute for them. I wish you a safe journey, Admiral. Commander. And to you, Commander, Roger replies, foregoing a salute himself, as they were once again in 0G. Thank you for your efforts on our behalf. The airlock opens, and the Mare Urban and Cerulean rejoin their vessel. Officers on the deck, Burrowson announces impishly as they enter the freighter's hold wearing their sashes. The assembled crew all offer cross-thorax salutes. Forgedam hastily removes hers. Please prepare to release the docking bolts and disembark, Mr. Burrowson, she says dryly. Aye, aye, Commander, he answers, with another jesting salute before leaping to the cockpit. You know, Roger starts to say, that I've only myself to blame? Yes, I know, Foragedom admits resignedly. I wonder what Peregrine will say once she learns she now has official contacts with the Iridian Deep Space Patrol, Roger muses. Honorary official, Foragedom amends. That reminds me, Forwardson. She turns to the junior crew member. Go tell Peregrine she can come out of the necessary now. So that ends chapter 10. The next chapter, 11, is called The Many-Headed Beast. See you next week.